Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Roots and Wings. This is the podcast dedicated to small to mid-sized business owners, all about your growth, scaling, the opportunities that are in front of you. My name is David Solomon. I'm a fractional chief revenue officer.
My name is Jennifer He. I'm Fractional Chief Marketing Officer. We're very thrilled to have a guest speaker and guest conversationist today, Brad Henderson, to join us in our episode. And in our previous episode, we talked about networking because it is very important for our audience. And we talked about treating networking as a strategic capital. So today I'm very happy to have Brad here. We're gonna drive this conversation deeper. First, I'm gonna introduce who Brad is. Brad brings over 4 decades of C-suite experience across real estate, information technology, telecommunications, and advanced manufacturing, having driven bottom line growth and winning outcomes as CEO and president at Sotheby's International Realty Canada, and in executive leadership roles at CBRE, Cushman and Wakefield, and TELUS Communications. He's overseen $5 billion in sales and led teams of up to 6,000 employees across multiple countries. Brad has scaled operations, navigated complex market transformations, and successfully built high-performing organizations across diverse industries. Basically, Brad, you've done it. And most importantly, Brad knows how to build exceptional organizations when the decisions are complex and stakes are high, and sustainable growth demands both strategic vision and operational excellence. I got to know Brad through this book. So he is also a best-selling author of this book, The Consistency Effect: How to Turn Reliable Actions into Remarkable Results. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you so much for having me, Jennifer and David.
So you've got real life executive experiences and over 4 decades of your career. You must have all those wisdom. So that's why we wanted to have this conversation again on networking. You've said and often said, because I met you many times, and both online and offline, this networking should be a lifelong habit, even for executives as well. I thought, for top executives, and you've already got the top job and you're busy. Why do you say that? And why should it be a lifelong habit? And how does it, help you and your peers? And what have you seen over the years?
There are so many things to unpack on that statement. So let me offer a few, and then I'll stop to get the dialogue going. But I think that a lot of people approach networking as a very short-term endeavor. They think that they should be able to go to an event, hand out a bunch of business cards, and see the sales or opportunities flow back into them very, very quickly. So what I found is a lot of people do that. They get disparaged, and then they discontinue doing any networking at all. And this is a mistake, because networking is a very important part of what I would consider to be the foundations for a successful career. If you talk to executive recruiters, they will tell you that only 2 out of 10 jobs are found through executive recruiters. 8 are found through your network. If you look at peer-to-peer consulting, peer-to-peer support, you'll find that many people who are struggling with any kind of issues with respect to growth will gain more from their peers and their network than they will from courses or books. So the benefits of networking are multifold, but it has to be done on a consistent basis, and it has to be done over a long term. In order for you to be able to get the most leverage out of your network, you have to be able to build rapport with the people that you want to rely on. And in order to do that, they need to see you showing up consistently and having an agenda other than what's in it for me.
Brad, I'm going to ask you a question because, I'm a sales guy through and through, and I tell everybody 35 years I've been doing sales. And the thing that pisses me off the most is when I hear networking is only for salespeople. Come on, help me to completely destroy that myth, please.
I, I would say that I agree with you that networking is not just for salespeople. Networking is for everyone because whether you're in sales, whether you're looking for your next opportunity, either in a company or in an industry or in business in general, it is your network that will help you to find those opportunities. And networking isn't just external. Networking is internal as well. If you work for a large organization, you should be networking within your organization as much as you are networking outside of your organization because you need people that are going to know, like, and trust you, support you, and more importantly, promote you to the individuals in the organization who are responsible for actual promotions, actual advancements inside of the company. So, yes, it is critical for salespeople, but I would say that it's equally critical for all other people as well.
So let me take, before we get into like the next big subject, I want to just take that exact sentence you just said and said, okay, busy executives, because that's what Jennifer started with. I
Mhm.
hear the CEO, I hear the whining. I just don't have time for this. I'm working on the business in the business. I don't have time for this nonsense of networking.
Yeah.
What do you tell busy CEOs? You've given us a little bit of a flavor. Let's go a little deeper into like what should a CEO be doing and expecting when it comes to this networking?
So, one of the things that I can tell you almost 100% of the executives that I talk to that are in transition. So, whether they have decided they wanted to do something else, whether they have been forced out of their company or out of their role, have all said the same thing. I wish I had done more networking when I was actively employed. And why? Number one, when you're actively employed or when you're running your own company, you have a tremendous amount of collateral. You're a going concern. You have knowledge, the ability to connect people, either to business opportunities or to other people in your industry. You have a wealth to be able to share with other individuals in exchange for building a relationship with them. Now, when you are in between jobs, when you're looking for your next opportunity, when you're looking for your next company or investment, you want to be able to lean on those people. And just like anything else, if there's no relationship built up, or as I think it was Stephen Covey said, the emotional bank account is overdrawn, then you're not going to be able to rely on those people. They're not going to want to come to your aid at the time when you're most vulnerable. So, to the people that say, I don't have time for it, if you don't have time for it now, guess what? It's going to be too late when you really
Yeah.
need it.
If you don't have time now, it's gonna take you more time to get to your next stage,
Yeah.
right? So I heard, do it as a long time habit and do it consistently. And when you have a job, when you have a position, a high power position, it's more your positional power over personal power. So over the years, through networking, you should let people know who you are as a person. and also take this opportunity to find out who you really are, what your core is, to have that balance.
Yep. And let me just give you one more example.
Mm.
All the years that I was a senior executive, I would get calls from people, some I would know, some that I wouldn't know that well, and they would be in between jobs and they were wanting to spend a few minutes to talk about opportunities. And whether I had an opportunity for them or not, I would always make time to have that coffee, because 100% of those people remembered that you had time for them when they were in need. And that triggers a powerful um, strength in a relationship that extends way beyond what you might even think is valuable. And I have people coming to me years, even decades later, saying, I remember when you took the time to interview me, and that meant so much, and that helped me so much, even if I didn't have a role or an opportunity for them. That time and that advice was more valuable than anything else. And play it forward. Now I'm looking for clients in my coaching and consulting business, and a lot of those people have gone on to take on senior roles. And you think they're going to return my phone call quickly? Absolutely.
Yes, totally. And in your book, um, there is, in one of the chapters I read, and one term stood out for me is you call it professional friendship. 'Cause in my work, I often hear, my colleagues say, I'm not here to make friends. So I thought, it's very intriguing. You put it as professional friendship. And for us, for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's business friendship. So we can translate into that context. What do you mean by that? Can you give us, your story and to understand business friendship, where the boundaries are? Like, how do we balance personal relationship with business relationship?
And I think all friendships are important, but some tend to be more personal in nature. They would be situations where you would um, be involved with people in non-business contexts, involving spouses and families, and it being more on a personal level. And then there's other relationships which are equally important, equally rich, but exist only within a business context. And so, if you talk about a professional business relationship or a professional business friendship, it's a relationship that's built over time. There's mutual trust and respect between the individuals, but it's possibly something that doesn't extend beyond the business context. It doesn't branch into personal life. And that's fine for both individuals involved. It exists as a friendship, but mostly centered around business. So all friendships are important, in my opinion. Business friendships can be somewhat different from personal friendships. They don't have to be the same, although in some cases they can be.
I think where people lose sight, and this is my experience, but I've also talked to a lot of CEOs at different stages in different size companies. We perceive networking as a sales approach, and I go back to that, like, oh, we're going into a room, whether it's a certain group, a chamber of commerce, or whatever. It's all about transactional. And what I tell them is, we're not doing any transactions until we have a relationship. Just because we're in the same room, just because we paid a membership to the chapter, doesn't mean I'm giving you anything. Doesn't mean we haven't forged a relationship. I tell people it takes time. We have to build a trust between us. So, what do you tell CEOs of these corporations? Like, what advice do you give them in terms of finding the right group and then focusing on the right relationship?
It's a great question, David, and it goes back to the earlier point, which is, if you're expecting to go to a couple of meetings and end up with whatever outcome, if it's a sales outcome, transaction outcome, business opportunity, job promotion, whatever, if you're expecting to come out with that outcome in a matter of meetings, it's a missed alignment between what's real and what's the right way to do it. So I think the first thing is to say, what is my objective from networking? Am I trying to build a strong core of people who know me, like me, and trust me, that I can utilize in the future to help me support from a peer-to-peer learning perspective, from a business development perspective, from a career and advancement perspective? What are the objectives that you have? I think the next thing is to say, who are the right people to meet in order to try and help me with those outcomes and objectives? What kind of groups do they belong to? And then I think the last one is to really evaluate, what can I bring to the equation that will be of at least equal value to what I'm expecting, if not greater value, to try and achieve a balance. And let me give you an example. Early in my career, meeting business executives was very important, arguably for sales, but also for knowledge and influence. So early on, I became very involved in the Toronto Board of Trade, Toronto Regional Board of Trade now, in some of their committees. And one of the things that I think, pretty good at, still am, is organizing people with different ideas, thoughts, and perspectives, and organizing them or managing them in a group where you have to exercise influence without authority. And if you're in a not-for-profit organization and volunteer organization, and you've got a whole bunch of different views around the room, you have to be pretty good at being able to orchestrate those views. Well, it's something that I liked and I enjoyed, and of course I became good at it. And what ended up happening is that in those situations, people would ask me, "Well, would you consider being the chair of this initiative?" And I was very flattered, and I said, yes, I would. And then all of a sudden, you become the person in the room who's seen as the connector, the orchestra leader, the person who is trying to bring forward all of those smart voices together in a room to try and build a collective platform. And what would end up happening is that they would see you as the person who they needed to get to know. They would see the value that was coming from what you were contributing to the organization in a very selfless way. And that would, in and of itself, build the strength of the relationship, so that months, weeks, years later, if you go to ask those people for their help or assistance, it was a very natural thing. It was a very just a very natural progression of the relationship that you had built early on.
Brad, and before I let Jennifer jump into that final big question here, I get a shared experience. I teach at McGill University MBA students, and one of the things I have to teach them is networking, because these are 20, 30-year-olds who've never networked, who are relying on the digital world. And what I tell them is, when you walk into a room, not everyone in that room is going to help you equally. What do you share? What is your top advice to business executives when they walk into that room that first time? Because you use the word selfless, and that's a scary word for many people. But what advice would you give a business executive who walks into that room looking for those professional friendships? What should they do? How should they start? What's your best advice?
I think definitely not to be a wallflower. A lot of the times I go to networking events, I see people sitting in a corner, standing in a corner with maybe one or two people that they already know, and they're hoping that somehow a relationship is going to come from that. The opposite is true. Better to divide up, spend time just meeting people and finding out who they are, having great questions is the best for managing people, the best for networking, the best for almost any situation I can think of. So to have great questions to ask people when you're in a room and say, tell me about your business, tell me about the things that you're struggling with, tell me if people love to talk about themselves. And so the more that you can get them to talk about themselves, the more they will become open and honest with you, the more they will feel interested in having rapport with you, which will lead to that relationship. So, I mean, I think that's the most important thing. The second most important thing is to do it consistently. Because if you go to one event one time and meet one person, it is going to have an impact if you're good at asking questions, but it's not anywhere near the impact that it will have if you do that day after day, month after month, year after year.
You know what I add to them is I say to them, you go to these events, it's almost like a speed dating. Like you're trying to set up that first date. You're not going to create the relationship you're looking for in a big event. Take those big events to set up those one-on-ones, and that's how you cultivate the relationship. It's not in a cocktail holding a glass of wine or a canapé and saying expecting some miracles. So that's just like people have these visions. I just go to an event and I don't understand, I should have 20 new friends.
Yeah.
And David, it's a great point, and more these events have attendee lists available beforehand. Um, Take a chance or take a minute to look at the attendees and see who the people are that you want to meet, and
Yeah.
why do you want to meet them, and do a little bit of research on them. Who is David Solomon? What's his background? What are some shared interests and stories that we can discuss together to build that better relationship? What are some of Jennifer's past accomplishments and past posts? That becomes great icebreakers when you're trying to identify Jennifer as somebody you want to meet and figure out the best way to go and chat with her about it. Right? It's a lot less complicated than it was decades ago.
Yes. Yes. So don't be a wallflower and do your homework. And what you said earlier, I love that as well. The exercise your influence without authority. So that's gold. Um, I have one last actually burning question, because this is how I see many entrepreneurs or individuals looking for a job, entrepreneurs looking for business. They're stuck at long term. They get that, long term networking is for long term. Look at long term, but short term, what if I'm struggling with cash flow? I'm struggling with operational paycheck to paycheck. I need to close deals. I need that transaction. How do I look at networking? Or is it the right place for me to do that? What's your wisdom on it? What's your advice?
Well, again, I think the statistic that should help everyone is that 8 out of 10 jobs or opportunities are going to come from your network, and so having a strong network, building a strong network is something that you can never start too early. But even if you're at a place where you don't have the kind of network that you want, but you still need help and support, I find that one of the best ways to do that is to talk to people who people that you know and trust, and use them as a way to try and leverage their network and get you introductions. And if you show up, and if I show up in your office, Jennifer, and I say, "Hey, Jennifer, I'm looking for a job. Do you have any jobs? Who can you introduce me to that has a job?" That is a hard conversation for Jennifer to have. On the other hand, if I show up in your office and I say, "Hey, Jennifer, I'm interested in, becoming a chief marketing officer, and I know that you have great experience and knowledge and expertise in this. Who are some people in your network that I could talk to and just do some research on being in marketing in enterprise or small, medium-sized businesses, whatever is of interest to them?" That's an easier ask for someone like you, Jennifer, because you know a lot of people, and to introduce a young person or anybody who's just interested in finding market information, market research, that's an easier introduction than somebody who's looking for a job. And what has been astounding is how many times those introductions have turned into, well, gee, Brad, it was great to chat with you. We actually are looking for somebody that does this. Is this something that would be interesting for you? So those market research calls, those industry background calls can turn into opportunities faster than anyone might expect, because not only are most of the jobs through your networks, but most of the jobs aren't posted on bulletin boards or on job boards.
Now, you talk about jobs and employment, but I'll take it a step further. Is if I'm, and to Jennifer's point, I have this short-term need for more business. One of the things I tell business owners is, I don't know what you do. I don't know how you do it. I don't know why you do it. You come in, you say, and because of your experience in real estate, I've met many real estate agents say, yeah, I'm a commercial real estate agent. So what do you tell those people? How do you tell them to stand out in a room where there's a lot of noise and clutter, Brad? Because there are a lot of Me Too people in this world.
And again, I think it's very much about building the relationship, because if you're expecting to have one call and have someone be able to differentiate you from many of your competitors, and then to be able to have the trust in you to want to handle their real estate transaction, that's a quantum leap. But uh, if you look for the opportunities to build rapport and relationship with the people, your uniqueness will come out, because you'll be able to differentiate yourself from others, but not do it in a pitch, do it in a more natural evolution of a conversation and a relationship. Because, and I know that this isn't addressing the short term, you know, imperative for revenue, but my book is The Consistency Effect. It's about how you turn reliable actions into remarkable results. It's not about how you do quick fixes, because I don't believe quick fixes are the way to solve your problems long term. You might get lucky with approaching things on a quick fix basis, but you're not going to be successful over and over unless you lay that foundation.
Yeah.
I think that's the quick fix is going to have to come from the marketing side, the communication, the sales team, and all that kind of stuff. But to avoid a short-term crisis, I think that where Mike's, because I do a lot of networking, and the biggest challenge I have is, why you? Like, why should I even talk to you? Yeah, I have a relationship with you, but I still don't know what makes you unique, how you stand out, and especially real estate, maybe less in the commercial real estate, but residential real estate. I gotta tell you, I've met hundreds of real estate agents, and most of them tell me the same thing. I sell homes. So what?
Mhm.
Like, I don't understand who I should introduce you to, how I should introduce you, what makes you unique, what's your specialty. Like, this is not the short-term solution. I agree with you, but to avoid a short-term help me to help you. I find that they're just so ill prepared when they come into networking events and one-on-ones.
It's a critical issue, and much longer conversation. But you're
Read read
going
Brad's
back,
book.
yeah, yeah. But going
Yeah.
going back to going back to sales and your unique selling proposition. Too
Mhm.
many people talk about what they do rather than why they do it, or
Or how
what makes
what
them different. To
yeah, yeah.
your point,
And also who they have the most impact, like who they do it with. If a real estate agent tell me, I work best with first time home buyers, then that will register in my head. Okay, I can introduce to you, like, in my friend circle who are the first time home buyers. And I think it takes a lot of exercises. And Brad, you said it's not for short term, but you have one piece of wisdom is it's never too late to start, right?
correct.
So you are having this short term pain because your mindset need to change. And I hope through today's conversation, like, the message, it's even registered even deeper in your mind is networking is a long-term thing. You should have a long-term mindset. Meanwhile, it's never too late to start. Start to exercise those tips that we just shared.
And having run Sotheby's International Realty Canada for a number of years, and having 600 of arguably some of the best residential real estate agents in Canada, our what we always knew is that at the end of the day, someone will pick someone that they know, like, and trust more than anything else, to be their guide in a residential real estate relationship and a residential real estate transaction. And if you're trying to come in last minute and say, I am the person you should know, like, and trust, and you're competing against someone who has built up a relationship over months, years, or even decades, it's going to be very difficult, because at the end of the day, you're placing a great deal of trust in that residential real estate agent to handle your real estate transaction, arguably one of the biggest transactions that you're going to do in your life. So I appreciate that having a unique selling proposition is important. It brings clarity to the conversation. Work best with first-time home buyers, work best in the luxury market, work best whatever. Very, very good. But equally, don't underestimate the power of building that relationship over time, because that, more than anything else, will be the solidifying factor. It'll be the deciding factor. It'll break any tie that's out there.
As we wrap up, I got to tell you, one of the things that Jennifer said is it's never too late. Is I believe throughout most of my sales career, networking was for bozos. It's not for me. I don't want to be in these things. At 45, 46, I started to power network and realized what it really meant. It had more impact on my personal life, on my family life, than on my business life. And I don't think people really get that formula of what networking really should be. And if you're in the right room, amazing things happen. If you're in the wrong room, and I'll quote the gentleman who founded BNI, he says, if you're at the bottom or at the top of the room, you're in the wrong room. Go find another room. And I give Ivan Meisner a lot of credit for that, about that whole mindset of really make sure you're in the right room, where, to your point, you're not only taking, but you're really over contributing to everybody else in the room, and watch the fantastic impact. So Brad, as we wrap up here on this episode, any final thoughts, final pieces of advice that you want to share with our audience?
Sure. One that springs to mind is it's actually an old marketing expression, and that executives will often say, I know that 50% of my marketing is not effective. I just don't know which 50%. In the book, I recast that as networking, because that at least 50% of the networking that you do isn't going to have an immediate or even a long-term effect, but you can never ever tell what 50% that is. And I'll give you one really, really quick example. I was when I was looking for my next opportunity, I was told that I should go and visit a mutual friend, and this person had sold his company, exited with multi-millions of dollars, had gone off to pursue very benevolent, not-for-profit endeavors across the world. But despite that, I said, okay, well, look, I'm going to go network with him. And I went and had coffee with him. It took me a month to set it up. Went and had coffee with him. He looked like he just rolled out of bed, the kind of thing that having a lot of money would give to you. And we had a pleasant chat. And at the end of it, he said, Brad, I've been out of the business world for quite a few years. And to be honest with you, I really don't have anything to help you. So I left that meeting thinking that, this is one of the 50% that didn't work out. But what ended up happening a few weeks later is I got a text from him saying, hey, Brad, just talked to a friend of mine. They're looking for a new president of Sotheby's International Realty Canada. I gave them your name.
You know what, Brad, and I'm going to let Jennifer wrap this up in just a second, but that story I've heard like that a few times. I've had it happen to me personally where I left a meeting, I went, okay, check, next, who knows, whatever. And then in one case, it was actually 2 years later, I got a phone call saying, hey, by the way, I thought about you because I saw you on LinkedIn. I remembered our conversation and I wanted to introduce you to this person, which turned out to be something unbelievable. So I don't believe in the 50%. I believe that it's more than 50% is you're gonna reap the rewards if done right and if being patient. That's my take on that. So I don't know, Brad, how you feel, but that's just how I'm looking at networking right now as short, well, mid and long.
Yeah.
To me, that's all it is.
It's
Jennifer?
critical.
Yeah.
It's critical.
Yeah, I I just realized one thing the three of us have in common is, we all regret not networking enough in our career.
Yes.
So I'm gonna close today's episode with a huge thank you to Brad to be our guest speaker today. One biggest takeaway is, I look at the screen, the three of us here, the room. Um, we have collectively over a century of business experiences. Me, 30 years, 3 decades, and David, 3 decades, and Brad, over 4 decades. So the three of us, we have one thing in common is we haven't done networking enough. So what does that say about you, our audience? Start now, prepare, do your homework, do the work. So that's the message for today.
Get Brad's book that you see on screen here, and if you're not sure what to do here, let's get
Yes,
started here.
I
All
made all
right.
those notes myself. So read it. Huge bundle of wisdom. And thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much for the compliments.
All right. Brad, thank you so much, guys. We'll see you, folks. We'll see you in our next episode. Thank you all. If you want to know more about Brad, actually, before we sign off, tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. My website is www.consistency-edge.com. There, I blog very frequently about leadership issues. You can also find out more information about my leadership coaching business and be happy to chat with anybody after this. All my contact information is there. So www.consistency-edge.com. And thank you so much, Jennifer and David, for having me on your show.
By the way, we'll have that also in our description at the bottom of this. If you're on YouTube checking this out, we will also have that information link for Brad over there. So, Jennifer, thanks again. Another great episode.
Thank you both.
All right, guys. Have yourself a wonderful day, guys. And remember, we'll be back here again in 2 weeks for our next episode. Thanks again, Brad. Jennifer, have a good day. And to everybody, take that advice. Start today.
Yes.
Take care.